והנה להבין כל זה, צריך להבין תחילה כללות עניין השבת מהו. So first I have to understand the whole general nature, the Indian of Shabbos. והנה כתיב, והלוקים את כל אשר עשה, והנה טוב מאוד. It says at the end of the first account of creation, and God saw everything that He had made, and it was very good. שבששת ימי בראשית הוא בחינת את כל אשר עשה. That the 6 days of creation are about making, meaning about asiyah, about doing something. והיינו, what does it mean that He did something? על ידי צירופי אותיות ה10 מאמרות. That He combined the letters of the 10 sayings. So the 10 sayings are, let there be light, let there be firmament, so on. The letters that went into these sayings, they were, as it were, combined. Okay. Why do they need to be combined? What's the idea? So first of all, he's saying what the 10 sayings are. That there be light, let there be a firmament, let the waters collect, let the earth grow grass. All this is a descent. Like in man, when you begin to speak, you're revealing your thoughts. And that's considered a descent from the thought to the speech.
Isn't Gilui an ascent? But now your soul's so private and secret. Now when you bring your souls into action, you do something.
No, so tell me.
Yeah, I know that my shoulder is more closer. But if you're doing something, bring something out into the open.
So there's different ways of saying, why is it a descent? So the simplest answer, the one that we've said many times, is that thought is much more atzmi, it's much closer to the person than his speech, because he can lie, but it's much harder for him to think something that he doesn't believe in. Okay? But it's easy for people to utter things that they don't believe in. So I can say 2 + 2 = 5, but it's very hard for me to think 2 + 2 = 5. I mean, I can think it. I have no image when I think it. I just maybe can see the letters that I would write on a piece of paper. So that's close. That's already close to speech. To understand that 2 + 2 = 5, that I can't do. There's no way. So in that sense, it's a descent from my essence, from who I am. The lower it is. So say it in the
you can't take it back. That's the ikar.
Right. What I wanted to say was, if you have a contract, you actually have to take it out of the drawer and see what it says. So it's just lost a lot of its value. Because if everything's fine, you don't need to look at the contract. Everything's fine. When we start nitpicking about what it says, what the language is, exactly what it is, and what you just say, how was it? So that means already that we don't trust each other. So we've lost a lot of the value that was in this contract to begin with, which was the inherent trust between the two parties. There's many ways of seeing it. Now, on the face of it, Hashem's thought is not like ours, as Isaiah says. Isaiah 55:8. My thoughts are not your thoughts. But what we do learn from this is that He does have thought. What does it mean? It's not our thought, but it's thought. What does it mean that it's thought? It means that by looking at, observing our own thought, we can understand something about how Hashem's thought works. Again, this is not to say that for Hashem the thought is inherent to Him. It could be that this is how He decided to express Himself. So He's expressing Himself by saying, I, who I am what I am, have decided to create the world in such a way that when you come to know me, it will be in the way that I resemble you, that I have thought. Machshava by Hashem means the concealed worlds. Meaning that the worlds that we cannot see, there, whatever light is sustaining that reality, that's called the supernal thought. And Hashem's speech is what we call the revealed world.
So then you should say that, wait a minute, Shira Sayam,
Right.
it's also Yerida.
Right. You know why? It's Aliyah. Because I just showed you the concealed world. You're right. To give the Torah, to be able to speak, the Torah, Hashem first had to reveal the concealed world. So it's as if, that's what we didn't finish last week, but it's as if before the giving of the Torah, there had to be a revelation of the thought behind the Torah. And the thought behind the Torah was at the Red Sea. That's where the concealed world was revealed. Exactly true. And everything is made out of letters. Why letters? Because letters in Aramaic, they mean a revelation. That it came, something suddenly came. That's a letter. It's something that's appearing is a letter. Because speech, where does speech belong? Speech is receiving from the 6 measures, supernal measures, meaning from the 6 days of creation. So in each day of creation, we're revealing another aspect of these 6 aspects of Zah, of Tiferet. Right? So the first day it's loving kindness, and the second day it's might, and they fit because you learn. Basically, it's one of the best ways to learn what each one of these midos are, what each one of these sfirot, from loving kindness to foundation, what they are. והנה ידוע מה אמר לאו דאית לך צדק ידיעה כולה לאחזה וכולו שבאדם בחינת חסד ורחמים מעורר התפעלות בנפשו להשפיע מה שאין כמידותיו יתברך מיוחדות בו יתברך שהוא אחדות פשוטה בלי שום שינוי התפעלות חס ושלום כמו שכתוב אני אהבה בשניתי וזהו לאו דאית לך צדק ידיעה. So he says still there's a difference. There's a very important difference between what it means, what speech means by us and what speech means by Hashem. In other words, what is the process, the creative process by a person compared to the creative process by Hashem? The creative process by a person is that it causes an excitement. And whenever a creation is any kind of expression is a creation. It's very hard to express without becoming excited. That's why most people, when they're talking, they get excited. Because expression, in some way, there has to be some kind of, even if you see this guy is completely cold, like that. So inside he's fighting, he's fighting not to show his...
It's called in English stiff upper lip.
Yeah. Well, that's if you can take a punch or something. You have a stiff upper lip. But by Hashem, there's no itpalut, there's no excitement. Why? Because nothing is separate, there's no change in the world. So what does it mean? It's just being expressed, but there's no change. וביות כן, שהשישה מידות עליונות הן למעלה מבחינת התפעלות ושינוי, על כן, כדי שיהיה נמשך מבחינת המידות לבחינת הדיבור, להיות עלמא דאיתגליה, הוא רק מבחינת אחוריים לשון תרגום. So we have this whole chiddush, that by Hashem, the revelation has no ispilus, this doesn't cause any change in him. So we call this that it's the backside. And how can he can do it facing front. It's not because, but we call it that it's like from his backside. Why? Because we don't see that it causes any change in him. So for us, it looks as if he's, behind his back. He's like, this whole process called creation, everything that happened in creation, it doesn't affect him. So it almost looks like he's doing it backhandedly. That's how we describe it. Because nothing happened. It's as if nothing happened. And that's called Targum. That's the whole idea that the Torah has a backside to it, and the backside to it is the translation. Why do we say it's a translation? Because what we're saying is that that it's not a direct even though this was speech, even though Hashem said, let there be light, and he said it in Hebrew, but we call it as if it was in Aramaic. When we say that, we said it was that way because it didn't touch him. Like the creation itself, he's not invested in it. There's no ispilus, there's no excitement for doing it. So there's a distance between the two.
What's it going to do with it being in Aramaic or in Hebrew?
Because if it was in Hebrew, as we say about the giving of the Torah, so the giving of the Torah is in Hebrew. The Ten Commandments is, we call it in Hebrew. They were both in Hebrew, but the other one we call it as if it was in Aramaic. Why? Because we want to say that you don't see that anything changed in God because he created the world.
Nothing changed when he gave this.
Oh, it's not true. Of course something changed. In that moment he's invested. From that moment on he's invested. And he says from that moment on, once I give you say in other words, if you eat or don't eat, that doesn't, as it were, affect Hashem. That's not avoda. That's not serving God. And you can't eat and say, I'm serving God. You can eat in order to learn, and then you say, my eating is serving God. And then your actions have an impact above. But without the Torah, you're just living a natural life that's not yet serving God. There has to be some level of commandment, meaning that he's invested in you. He says, okay, now I'm commanding you, and it depends on your action. Now I'm placing myself out there in dependence on your response to my request. And that didn't exist in the creation. In the creation, he didn't invest himself in the creation and say, in a certain sense, in creation, we see that Hashem is like indifferent. That's what it looks like. It's not, but at least as far as the creation is concerned, there's nothing going on. So if you build a house, nothing changed in Hashem. But if you write a new line of commentary on the Chumash, something changed in Hashem, as it were. Here we say there is excitation. By the Torah we say there is excitation. This is panim b'panim diber Hashem b'chem. וזהו שבכל ששת ימי בראשית עד אחר ויחולו לא נאמר רק שם אלוקים. That's why the only name of God that's used to describe the creation is Elokim. It's only nature. But once you reach Vayichulu, and Vayichulu including Shabbos, it's a little fuzzy there, right? When we say Shabbos, ויחולו השמיים והארץ בכל זמן, ויחד אלוקים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה, ויברך אלוקים את יום השבת ויקדשו. בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוקים לעשות. So in these three verses of Shabbos, there's still no Elokim, there's still no Havaya. But right after Shabbos, what's the next verse? אלה תולדות השמיים והארץ, ביום עשות הוויה אלוקים, Eretz v'shamayim. So it says la'asot. All this was made. How does Shabbos conclude? Asher bara Elokim la'asot. That God made all of this, created all of this, in order to do, meaning for the world of action. What's the first action that he does right after that? Ele toldot hashamayim ba'aretz b'yom asot havaya Elokim. So the first action in the next verse, in our Bibles, because the Christians divided it, so it's divided incorrectly. It should have been that the three psukim of Shabbos would have been the 20th, 29th, and 30th psukim of the first chapter. The first chapter should have been ended after Shabbos. But because I don't know why the Christians did this, they divided it. They divided Shabbos. They added Shabbos to the second chapter. So this verse these are the chronicles of, or these are the offspring, the results, what came out of the heavens and the earth, on the day that Havaya Elokim made the earth and the heavens. So that, by us, is the fourth verse of the second chapter. It should have been the first verse of the second chapter. But in any case, that is the first time that we have another Asiyah after Hashem says, what did I make all this for? To do. And what is the first thing that he does afterwards? Again, it's like a separate account, but in the order of the verses, it's just what comes out. That the first thing that he did was to make Havaya Elokim. Asot Havaya Elokim. To make Havaya into Elokim. Meaning to imbue what was until now only with Havaya. What is that? Havaya is the name of Rachmim. It's the name of compassion. So he's now adding something new into the mix. Okay? That happens right after the Shabbos. Right after Shabbos, you suddenly have Shem Havaya appearing, compassion appearing, or in any case, Hashem's essence appearing.
Shem Havaya was Gevurah.
No, Elokim is Gevurah. Only Elokim. Nature is harsh. Nature is indifferent. והוא בחינת שם אלוקים שהוא שורש בחינת והעניין כי ידוע מה שכתוב שמש ומגן הוויה אלוקים. What does it mean to add Havaya into Elokim? We know that Havaya and Elokim are like the sun in its sheath. כי שם הוויה כתיב אני הוויה לא שניתי, because about Havaya it says I am Havaya, I have not altered in any way. And that's what we mean when we say that Hashem is unchanging. We're referring to his name Havaya. כנ"ל לאו דאית לך צדק ידיע and so on. ובחינת אלוקים הוא הנרתיק לשם הוויה, נקרא גם כן שמש. כמו שכתוב שמש ומגן הוויה. כדי להיות התהוות הבריאה יש מאין, שזו על ידי אותיות הדיבור. So the name Elokim means speech. It's like the sheath of the sun. And Havaya is the essence of Hashem, which doesn't change, which goes into the speech. So until now the speech was completely detached. But now suddenly you have some element of Hashem's essence now introduced into the speech that created the world. And this is, meaning the speech, is what we call the letters of the speech, and they're also called vessels. And Havaya is like the light that enters into the vessels. So that's another way of thinking about it. What he said until now was just technical vessels, technical letters that came out and created the world. But now he's adding the light into it. שלמעלה מבחינת כלים ואותיות. לכן המשכה משם הוויה הוא דווקא על ידי המגן לשם אלוקים שהם אותיות המעלימיים וכנ"ל. Now we understand that the letters are something else. You have to have the letters because they're a protective covering, like the sheath of the sun. They're a protective covering from seeing God's essence. Because if you would see Havaya, there would be no room for any creature with free will. You couldn't function. When we say you couldn't function, we don't mean just that you would turn into a puddle of some, I don't know, like a slug. What we mean that you couldn't function is that there would be no free will. There would be no independence of action, and you would just be an automaton. That's what we mean. Okay? So the name Elokim allows there to be a separate reality, as it were. So these letters, we've talked about this many times, that when Hashem said, let there be the sun, Yu me'orot b'rikei hashamayim. He says they should light, they should give off light. But that light that they give off is actually a concealment of Hashem's essence. If we would see beyond that light, if we could see the real light, what's hiding inside that light, we call it light, but really it's darkness because it's concealing, it's a sheath for Hashem's essence that's inside. So he gives us what we call light. But that light that we call, that's light gives us free will. But that's really darkness. Not that we don't want free will, we want free will. But we want free will, we want to have our cake and eat it too. So what we really want is, we want to be able to have free will, and at the same time be able to see Hashem's essence. That's the question about whether you can come to that paradox. So in any case, in the beginning stages, when we're not yet ready for that, so what Hashem does is He conceals Himself from us through the words of creation, through the account of creation, through creating the world. So the world becomes a big sheath on His essence. That's why in the 6 days of creation, the only name that was used was Elokim. Because in the 6 days of creation, all that was being created was the garment that later Havaya would enter, God's essence would enter. We need to finish. נאמר והנה טוב מאוד, ויחול השמיים, פירוש טוב מאוד מבחינת בעל תשובה כידוע, לטוב זה יצר טוב, ומאוד זה יצר רע, כשנהפך לטוב על ידי התשובה. In fact, that it says afterwards, we've not looked at it on the 6th day, it was all very good. What does it mean that it was all very good? That there was tshuva in the world.
Nobody had done anything.
What?
Nobody had done anything to do tshuva for.
Tshuva is not about doing something. The very fact that Hashem had created the world in such a way that His essence is concealed needs to be turned around. The essence needs to be revealed. So the very sense that He says, "V'nei tov me'od," that's very good. And good, the very good means a chance to churn things around. That itself is an indication that we can come to a state of revealing the essence within creation. In the same way that a person who does tshuva is really going back to reveal his true essence from all the darkness that he's living in. So his life right now is like a state of darkness. It's like all letters and vessels, and there's no essence inside, or at least he can't see the essence. And when he does tshuva, when he returns to Hashem, He reveals the light on the inside. Same thing has to happen to the world. It's like Hashem looked at the 6th day. Hashem looked at the world and said, "It's all very good." What's He saying? From now on, I'm going to reveal this is a good vessel if I reveal within it the essence. It's not a good vessel if it remains dark the way that it is. So this vessel needs to do tshuva as well.
What?
So we continue to.
By the way, the Masorah is that the first time the Chumash was ever printed, so the printing assistant, he divided up the Chumash. He didn't know anything what he was talking about. That's what the Masorah is. And the Rabbanim didn't change it. When they redivided it, they didn't change it.